Hi guys, and welcome to another video. I'm so sorry it's been so long, but as many of you know, I'm a college student who's also writing her honors thesis, so life has been a bit crazy. But I'm so excited to tell you all that today I'm doing a video with makeup tips for trans men and women, and to sort of show you how you can highlight or bring forth more traditionally masculine features versus more traditionally feminine features. So that's what we're gonna get into today. And my wonderful friend Lilo has so graciously agreed to be my model since they have a bit more fluid of a gender presentation. So we're going to start with some more traditionally masculine looks, and then we will move into the traditionally feminine looks. Okay, and we're just going to start with some concealer. This one's from Makeup Revolution, and this isn't really a necessary step, necessarily. But I just wanted to show you that you can use concealer and show you ways to make it not look so much like you're wearing makeup if you're not comfortable with that look and things like that.
So you're starting with the more masculinizing look, right?
Yes.
Do you put on primer before you put on concealer?
You can. Sometimes I don't if I'm not wearing much makeup, like not wearing foundation, but
Okay.
you can also wear primer. Some people will tell you to always wear primer all the time, but I'm just gonna demonstrate with a couple little spots, nothing too serious. And one of my favorite ways to blend out concealer, if you're not wearing anything else and you want it to make sure it looks natural and not like you have this little spot on your face, is to just use your finger. I usually use my ring finger. That's most things in makeup you like to use your ring finger for because it's the one you have the most control over because it's the most still. So, I'm just gonna take this and I just kind of tap in the center and then I blend the edges out. You don't want to blend the center out too much or you lose the point of concealer, but you do want to make sure it looks natural on your skin. Hi puppies.
There's dogs in the shot.
Both there and my service dogs are in the room, so this is a Wet n Wild highlight and contouring palette that I really like, and all I'm going to do now is use the highlight side, which is the yellow side. It's not that bright as it appears on camera, and use it to set the concealer. That'll just make sure that it doesn't, and you kind of want to really tap off excess so it's not too powdery, and that'll make sure your concealer doesn't move around at all during the day. And if you do have some redness or you want your skin to look a little more smooth or anything, you can do sort of a light dusting of powder everywhere and it won't look like too much. Loose setting powders are also good for that.
Are you doing that with highlight?
Technically this is called a highlight, but honestly it's just kind of a matte color that on some people might be a highlight, but on
me,
either of us it probably won't be, because it's just sort of a neutral yellow color. Then we're going to go in with this cream contour palette from e.l.f. I would really suggest cream contours if you're trying to avoid that powdery look. Sometimes they can blend in a bit better. You do have to do a little more with them and work a little more to make sure they blend fully and don't look too stark against your skin, but if you do blend them all the way out, then it can look really good. So that's another thing if powdery looks are your concern. So as I was helping Lilo buy makeup, we think we bought the darker shade, so some of these are pretty dark, but we're gonna mix these two lighter shades to get more of a contour color for them that's not gonna be too harsh. And I'm just gonna take a bit of that on my finger. You can turn your head. I'm gonna follow the line of their cheekbone here. And then I'm going to go a bit onto the cheek here. And what this does is that something with more traditionally feminine looks is the like bright apple cheeks that are sort of a rounded face look, whereas the masculine looks tend to be a bit more sharp or defined in the cheekbone area. So sort of cutting across the cheek a bit like that will help. You want to make sure you go really light so it's not noticeable, but it will help a bit with that sort of look.
Did my dog just lick a light bulb?
Yeah, he sure did.
Okay.
So you can kind of see when they look in the camera that the cream contour really blends in pretty well and helps keep it from looking powdery at all. And then The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a brush, it's just sort of a shadow brush, and I'm gonna take a bit more of that contour color. So you're just gonna take a little bit of your cream and you're gonna go right up the nose and then a little under the eyebrow, sort of right in that curve. And what that'll do is sort of bring some shadow here, and it makes your, it'll help make your forehead look a little more prominent. You don't want to go sort of right in the middle or it'll make you look a bit more like you have a unibrow, which, you know, if that's what you want, go for it. But in terms of what we're trying to do is just that forehead prominence, you know. So.
Rita rocked it.
Mm-hmm. She sure did. And another thing to note is that with the more traditionally masculine transformation is that it's going to look a lot more subtle because you may not want to look like you're wearing makeup. So you want to avoid any of that. So it's going to be a lot less noticeable, but little things like that can make a big difference. Okay, next I'm going to take an eyebrow powder. This one's just in a reddish brown color, and I'm going to take an angled brush. Now this one is a bit thicker this way than a lot of other angled brushes, and that's going to help because you don't want it to look too super defined and sharp. You want it to look a bit more like natural and wily is the only word I can think of. So this will kind of help with that and help make sure it's not too defined. So we're just going to take a bit of that on here and tap it off. I'm almost going to go through the center of their eyebrow. Because again, you're avoiding that too definite. But if you have very sparse eyebrows, this can still fill them in a bit for you. And another thing you can do is sort of take this and put it a bit lower here, where you might have a bit of an arch. Sometimes people assigned male at birth have a bit less of an arch in their eyebrow. And then I'm going to take what's called a spoolie. It's almost like a mascara wand, but it doesn't have any mascara on it. And we're just going to brush through the hair. That'll help smooth and blend out any powder or any sharp looking lines. You can't stop here, and that'll help a lot, and it'll be a bit of a transformation, but what we're going to test out today, full disclaimer, I haven't done this before, but I do want to try it out, and I've read up some things, they've given me some tips, and we're going to figure it out, is how to give yourself a bit of a 5 o'clock shadow and beard effect. So you can leave it here, and it still does make a difference, but we're going to do that extra step for you real quick. Okay, so we're going to go back into that cream contour and get a face brush and just dip into a bit of it, same kind of colors.
Aren't they all face brushes though?
Well, yeah, okay. But like these are called eye brushes. Technically they are all face brushes.
Okay.
Turn this way a bit, and we're going to kind of just tap very lightly some of this color. You're almost actually going to follow that same line you did with your contour. And you really want to build it up with this, so go kind of slow, you know, don't jump into it.
It'll be a lot easier to add more than to take it away.
Exactly. And doing what's called stippling, which is where you just like pat down like this, will make it look a bit more like individual hairs and things like that, as opposed to if you just like wipe the color, it'll look very smooth. So that's another thing that might help. And you're going to want to make sure that you blend down onto the neck a bit. That's how hair would grow. So now that we've gotten a bit of that cream base, I'm going to go back into this palette, but I'm going to use the contouring side to get a bit more of a opaque color. But this will give you kind of a nice base, and it'll help keep it on longer and make it look a bit more natural. And don't be afraid to kind of bring it up onto the cheek a bit. And make sure you go up here. Don't neglect this part of your face. Now I'm just going to take sort of a fluffy-ish brush and very lightly just sort of swoop like this to make sure there's no strokes that are like super dark and out of place and look crazy. Just very like light sort of sweep motions. And I think we're done with this part of the video. So, try to put your glasses on.
We are going to put in
Yeah, I'm going to put some pictures
before
in
and after
here.
shots.
Presuming I can figure out how to do it. Don't make promises for me. So this is our traditionally masculine look. So now we're going to have them clean off their face, and we'll move on to the second half of the video. And we are going to start with primer this time since we're going to be wearing foundation and heavier makeup. It'll help keep it on longer and make it look smoother. So I just have this sample size of the Smashbox Photo Finish Primer, which I really like because it smooths out your skin a lot. I'm just going to put this. I tend to start on the center of the cheeks and then put it kind of everywhere else because the center of my cheeks at least tend to be where I get the most oily. And then next I'm going to go into some foundation. This is the NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop foundation. It's pretty good, it's pretty buildable, and the other thing I like about it is that there's a huge shade range, so it's an option for a lot of people. Pat most of it into places and then work on blending it out a bit. I don't worry too much with the brush about blending it fully in, because the way I like to apply it is just to sort of spread it out with a brush to make sure the coverage stays, and then really blend it in with a beauty blender to make sure it's smooth. I'm going to take a sponge, this one's from EcoTools, and just make sure it's fully blended out. Also, doing it with a sponge helps it look less cakey and less like you have it on because it sort of presses it into your skin more. Then we're going to move on to concealer, and I'm going to use this Makeup Revolution one. This one is a little bit lighter than their skin tone, which can help brighten your under eyes. And you don't need a whole lot. I see a lot of people on YouTube who put like 8 pounds of concealer on their face, and it makes me sad. Like, I don't understand how they do it. You really don't need too much. You can put it sort of in, it doesn't have to be an exact triangle like you see places, but that sort of shape with a bit onto your cheeks is nice, because it sort of brightens up your cheeks and highlights that part of your face. And then you can put a bit on your nose and on your forehead. And then kind of as we talked about with the traditionally masculine look, putting a line across here, you can sort of do the opposite and brighten it up. And then also right here on the Cupid's bow.
So are you kind of using that like a highlighter?
Yeah, exactly. You can do that with concealers that are lighter than your skin tone. It's the same idea as like a cream highlight would be.
Interesting.
Then we're just gonna blend it out. I'm gonna take a loose powder and then a very fluffy brush. That'll make sure that your powder doesn't keep it looser and lighter and more airbrushed.
Smells like
Grandma's.
Yes.
Yes, it does. This powder is great. It's the Coty Airspun powder. It's wonderful, but it does have a really strong scent. So if you are sensitive to scents or you don't like them very much, then I would skip it. The Maybelline Fit Me is another really good option.
Any of y'all else out there with a sensory processing disorder, that is. Whew, that's a strong scent there.
It does fade, but definitely when you first put it on, it's a little overpowering. I'm going to take that same contouring powder that we did with the other one. Lightly brush. You don't want to go too hard with your contour. If you already have pretty angular cheekbones, you might want to just skip it completely, because a more traditionally feminine face is a bit rounder and wider. So you don't want to sort of narrow that down too much with contour. But after you put some foundation on, sometimes your face looks a little like flat, so you want to give it some dimension with some contouring. And unlike with the other routine, you want to make sure you don't get onto your cheeks. You want to stay back here and away from your cheeks. So on that same kind of note, I'm going to take some blush, and this one's from Milani. And what's nice about this one is that it's a slightly shimmery blush. So in the same way that highlight works, we'll use highlight, but it'll sort of help the highlight brighten up your cheeks and bring them out, and sort of a nice bright flushed face is a very, I think, sort of classic image or whatever. So if you smile at yourself, you can see right here is kind of where you want to focus your blush. I go very light at first, especially if you're trying out a blush for the first time and you're not sure how pigmented it is. So again, you smile, and then right where your cheek pops out, that's where you want to focus your blush, and then you can sort of spread it a bit further back. Lastly, for the face part, we are going to take a highlighter and just put it right on the top of your cheekbone. So can you do the fish face? So here's where your contour goes, on that bottom, and then your highlight is the opposite. It's going to go on top of your cheekbone and sort of bring that part of your face out. And so again, like before, or the opposite of before, going a bit onto the cheeks kind of might help out, and sort of in this under eye area. You don't want to go too hard, especially if you have a glittery highlight, but a little bit of it can help round out your features.
So I know some women have complaints about like their brow ridge being too prominent.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have ideas for that?
Mm-hmm. What you can kind of do there is, you might want to actually go back to something like this. That's this sort of matte yellow, not super shimmery, but it's still a highlighting shade for you. Take a brush, and if you put it right here. So when you have a prominent forehead, it tends to be because there's a lot of shadow right in this area that makes this part of your face look deeper. So if you take that highlight and put it here, it can really combat that. You just don't want to go too far up. You want to stay below the eyebrow line. The other thing I did also before we started talking about that was highlight the Cupid's bow right here, because sort of making that more prominent can emphasize your lips a bit more. And that is it for our facial features. The palette I have today is just one from ColourPop. It's You Had Me at Hello. It's sort of very basic eyeshadow colors. I'm gonna just do a sort of very classic look, nothing too fancy, something that's a very good template for eyeshadows. So I'll kind of explain what I mean as I go, but we're gonna start with this light shade. That's gonna make a good transition shade. You want it to be just slightly darker than your skin tone, but not too much. And we're gonna put this right in the crease, which is that area sort of, if you press, right above your eyeball. And then next, I'm going to dip into a slightly darker shade. And you just want to sort of step down on the shades. So the lightest, and then a little bit darker, and then a little bit darker, and so on. And when you have this darker color, you can focus it more like intensely into your crease. Whereas the other one, I sort of just blend it out everywhere. I like this palette a lot because it doesn't have much fallout, but if an eyeshadow palette does have fallout, you'd probably want to do your foundation first. What I mean by fallout is if like little bits of shadow get all over your under eyes. Then I'm gonna take a slightly shimmery shade. I'm gonna go with this sort of gold one, and I'm gonna put this all over their eyelid. And that just sort of brightens up your eyes. And then I'm gonna go into a slightly denser brush and take the darkest color in the palette, this dark brown, and put this just on the outer, they call it the V of the eye, because if you go like here, here, you don't want to go too far in, but about maybe a third of the way in is a good guesstimate. And then all we're going to do for the lower lash line is sort of repeat the pattern, except for I'm just going to start in the second darkest shade we used. And open your eyes and run it along the lower lash line. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that if you have the more prominent forehead like we talked about and deeper set eyes, you want to do a lot less in your crease, because otherwise that'll deepen your eyes even more. So you can do like a light brush of color and stuff, but I would mainly focus on just that outer V thing and that kind of thing, as opposed to a lot of darkness in the crease. And I do just want to take the brightest, lightest shade in here, and we're going to highlight the inner corner by just putting a little bit here, and a little bit here, and then also highlight the brow bone, just right here. That'll sort of, again, since it's a bit lower right here, sort of the same as it pulled this forward, it'll pull forward that area right under your eyebrow. So what I meant earlier when I said it was a template is just that you can follow the same pattern with any color. So if you wanted to do blue, for example, you'd want a light blue, slightly darker, pretty dark blue. That same sort of pattern in the same places you can do if you're just looking for a basic eye look, but you want to try a different color. Then my other tip I want to say is to take a white eyeliner, or if you have a slightly darker skin tone, then a more champagne, almost tan colored eyeliner, and put it in your waterline.
So I think you said if you have a slightly darker skin tone,
Mm-hmm.
but wouldn't you use that for any darker skin tone?
Yeah, really any darker
slightly
skin tone.
darker than me is
Yeah.
still gonna be pretty light.
Yeah, you'd want to use it for any darker skin tone, I should say, because the idea is that since it's white, it brightens your eyes, it makes them look bigger and brighter and things like that. And so even though darker skinned people obviously still have white eyes, it looks a little harsher against their skin tones and looks too white. And so the champagne color sort of makes it a little more smooth, or makes it, you know, blend a bit better. And then if you do want to use eyeliner and you're a beginner, I would suggest a felt tip liner. My favorite thing to actually use is a liquid liner, but it can be a lot harder to manage when you're starting out. And this one's nice because it's just like a pen, so you can just draw it on like you would draw anything. Yeah, you probably would. This one's from L'Oreal. It's their super slim ones, which I like because you can make a really thin line, which it's easy to go overboard. And even if you don't want to do a wing or anything like that, super, you know, scary, complicated, just a thin line against your eyes can also make them pop a bit more. And then next, we're just gonna go back to the brows real quick. And so as I was talking about with more masculine features, they're kind of bushier eyebrows, less defined. We're gonna do sort of the opposite here, and we wanna sort of sharpen them up. Emphasize that arch rather than trying to hide it. That's also what the brow bone highlight helps with. And we're gonna just take the spoolie again and sort of brush it out, make sure everything's blended well. I am going to let them put on their own mascara because that's one thing. It's just very difficult on other people. Yeah, looks good. Then setting spray. This just helps really set all your makeup. It really sinks in any powdery looks, and so this is one of the key things to help keep your face from looking like you're wearing too much makeup.
It's like a varnish.
Yeah, that kind of idea. So we're just gonna, you're varnished. Then lastly, we're going for lipstick. I just chose sort of a natural color, but it is a bit pink. It's actually a color I'm wearing, but I'm gonna put it on you too. The other thing I'm gonna do is kind of try and emphasize Cupid's bow. You can sort of overline a little bit. And there's our completed look. That's about all I have for you guys today. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'll throw up a before and after. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I really hope it helped out. As always, if you have any questions or even other things you want me to film videos about or do, then please leave them in the comments for me, and I will do my best to get to them as soon as possible. But I'm always available to answer questions. I have Twitter @MollyEMakeup, and I also have an Instagram. You can leave questions there. I will be around. So I will also link in the description box some other trans YouTubers I've found, and please go support their channels as well. They might have some better tips than I do. Nonetheless, I hope some of these tips helped you out. So that's about all I have. So I hope to see you next time. Make good choices, have a good day, and goodbye. That's all I got.
Make good choices, like, are you like their mom or something?
Yeah.